It is Sunday, May 11th, and a major breakthrough is happening between the U.S. and China. Trump making the announcement this morning. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary who's leading up these negotiations, confirms it. A deal is being struck. The meeting's shrouded in secrecy, but we have some details of what to expect, and it is big. Also, the media trying to spin this already as Trump backing down. That's not what's happening. We're going to show you, and more stories as well from around the country. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps out the channel. And consider subscribing so you don't miss these regular updates. Trump, the deal maker in chief, has successfully struck a deal with China. We've been hearing a China trade deal was much closer than people thought after multiple other deals being hammered out and closed. The rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine being signed last week, then the US-UK trade deal. But this is the big one, the one the world is watching. China, the two largest economies, having ripple effects throughout the globe. Every other country's paying very close attention to this. A deal which needs to fully and permanently solve China's unfair trade practices, stop them, primarily stop their currency manipulation, which is what allows them to afford these ridiculously cheap exports, illegally devaluing their currency. So when trading in dollars, the difference eats up the losses they incur exporting everything so damn cheaply. And we're hearing Scott Bessent has done it. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent successfully negotiating a full and complete trade reset with China this weekend. President Trump announcing late last night that great progress has been made in Switzerland between his two top negotiators and the Chinese delegation. Scott Bessent and Jamieson Greer arriving Friday to Geneva. Cameras catching multiple convoys of black vehicles arriving to that 18th century Villa Saladin. This villa is like out of a painting overlooking Lake Geneva, where both sides meeting for 2 full days of talks, 12 hours on Saturday, then all day today, hammering out these details of what's needed to convince President Trump to begin lowering his tariffs. Not many people realize that the 145% tariffs went into effect Friday, 2 days ago. They were announced weeks ago, but they just went into effect 2 days ago, which means the pain is now here. China is officially feeling the pain. It's not a coincidence this deal's happening so quickly. And of course, corporate media trying to spin this as if Trump's looking for an off-ramp. That is not what's happening. Watch what U.S. media is saying about this. Roll the tape.
Donald Trump is backed into a corner. His grand plans of tariffs aren't working, right? You're seeing day in and day out more business leaders, whether it's Warren Buffett or Jamie Dimon or Ken Griffin, on big global stages saying this is going to crush us economically. And then you've got congressmen, senators from every state saying to this White House, our small businesses are are dying here. I'm not saying Donald Trump has changed what he thinks in his heart, but he's backed into a corner and he needs to get off this crazy tariff train, and he knows it. So what did we see with England, right? Great Britain, you've got a PM there who's a close ally of Donald Trump, and they're saying, let's put on a show, let's create a theater, and let's say we've got a deal. And yes, there aren't any details to it. There is still a 10% tariff, which is why Jay Powell is not cutting rates, because 10% is more than triple what it was. So it's still going to be painful, especially for small business. But what's most important is the language around China. A week ago, China was like, we're not showing up unless you lower the tariffs, and we didn't. 48 hours ago, Donald Trump said, we're not going to lower the tariffs. Yesterday, he said, yeah, maybe. And today, things are softening even more. So I absolutely agree with you that Donald Trump is looking for some sort of exit here. And 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, we may be seeing a much better picture, because he has been told that look at the cargo ships coming in to Seattle, the port of Los Angeles. Pick the port. Those ships, we're getting fewer and fewer ships with less and less cargo. And unless he turns this around, 3 weeks from now, you walk into a store and we're going to have a COVID-like supply chain crisis.
A complete mischaracterization of what's happening. China called this meeting, not Trump, not Bessent. China begging to meet this weekend. And why? Why did they demand it to be this weekend? Because the tariffs went into effect Friday. Since Friday, China is officially closed for business. Millions of Chinese factory workers furloughed over the last few weeks after Trump's 145% tariff announcement. The last few weeks, we've seen major front-running by U.S. companies buying huge quantities of Chinese goods to front-run these tariffs. But that's over. The levy is now active, being collected for all future Chinese imports. China pressuring the U.S. for these talks to happen immediately. Scott Bessent agreeing last week, meeting with the Chinese delegation for 2 straight days this weekend, meeting with China's vice premier. And after 2 full days of negotiation, President Trump posting on Truth Social saying a very good meeting today with China in Switzerland. Many things discussed, much agreed to, a total reset negotiated in a friendly but constructive manner. We want to see, for both the good of China and the U.S., an opening up of China to American business. Great progress made. Then hours after posting that, more good news. Scott Bessent and Jamison Greer announcing a full briefing on what this deal looks like will be held tomorrow on Monday. Watch.
We will be giving details tomorrow, but I can tell you that the talks were productive. We had the vice premier, 2 vice ministers who were integrally involved, Ambassador Jamison and myself. And I spoke to President Trump, as did Ambassador Jamison last night, and he is fully informed of what is going on. So there will be a complete briefing tomorrow morning. I will turn it over to the ambassador.
U.S. Trade Representative Jamison Greer adding that it's important to understand how quickly we were able to strike a deal, how quickly we were able to come to an agreement, which means perhaps the differences were not so large as some people thought, saying we are confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency. Roll the tape.
I will turn it over to the ambassador.
Thank you, Secretary. I want to echo the Secretary's remarks with respect to the Swiss government. They've been so welcoming, and they posted this, and everything has gone off flawlessly, and we appreciate that. And again, to the Chinese negotiators, Vice Premier Liu He, Vice Minister Li Qiangong, and Vice Minister Liao Min worked very diligently, and these are very tough negotiators. A couple of them I know from before and have had past interactions with them. And this was, as the Secretary pointed out, a very constructive 2 days. It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought. That being said, there was a lot of groundwork that went into these 2 days. Just remember why we're here in the first place is the United States has a massive $1.2 trillion trade deficit. So the president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs. And we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
This coming after President Trump foreshadowed all of this, telling Americans Friday, buy stocks now because it's all up from here. The second time Trump gave all of us notice before one of his major trade announcements. He did the same thing a few weeks ago before he paused the reciprocal tariffs. If you bought when Trump said to then, you would have made 10% on the S&P in a matter of like 3 hours. Here's what Trump said Friday. Watch.
It's the biggest bill of its kind ever in the history of this country. And Speaker Johnson and Leader Thune have done an incredible job. I mean, I'll let you know we have to get a vote, but we have a lot of support for that bill. And if that happens on top of all of these trade deals that we're doing, this country will hit a point that you better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship that goes straight up. This is going to be numbers that nobody's ever seen before. That's a very important element of all of this. You know, if we get that, if you don't, and the Democrats are fighting it only because they want to fight. They have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, if it was somebody else, they wouldn't fight. If you had a normal person, if you had some stiff sitting behind you, they'd be fine. But they have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, Senator Schumer's become a Palestinian. Welcome. I don't know when they're going to give him the ceremony, whatever the ceremony may be. But it's terrible what's happened to the Democrats. So very, very important element of everything, of what we're doing.
Now, what we're hearing is China needs these tariffs lifted. Not wants, they need them lifted. Beijing just pulled their econ data, the public data each country publishes on unemployment, on consumer trends, inflation, etc. They pulled it, citing national security and economic stability concerns. What we're hearing is Trump's agreeing to lower the tariffs, remove the full embargo currently in place with these 145% tariffs, because at this rate, it's essentially a full embargo on China. Trump's agreeing to relax those tariffs, not remove them, relax them, maybe cut them in half, with a pathway to lowering them more if China complies with the deal. Looking maybe quarterly or annually if they're living up to the agreement, then the U.S. side of the deal may agree to lower the tariffs by, 10% each quarter or each year or something like that. If the Chinese fail to follow through, the tariffs then stay in place. Something like that is what we're hearing is the structure of this deal, which will be announced tomorrow. At the moment, our tariffs are all the way up here. The dotted line may be where they're going to fall to immediately upon this deal going into effect. One could assume the markets will react very positively to this news. Meanwhile, Trump's trade and tariff policy having major positive repercussions for multiple other sectors, domestic energy and mining in particular. Check this out. On January 20th, President Trump signed an executive order called Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential. It reads, the state of Alaska holds an abundant and largely untapped supply of natural resources, including, among others, energy, mineral, timber, and seafood. President Trump indicating he wants to develop these resources to the fullest extent possible. The order directing U.S. policy to fully avail itself of Alaska's vast lands and resources for the benefit of the nation. As you can see in the graph, gold stocks have a tremendous gap to close compared with gold's spot price, which has soared, which is why I'm still very bullish on the gold stock sector right now. All right, that wraps up the news portion of this video. Now let me tell you about the sponsor for today, US Gold Mining Inc. Trading on the NASDAQ, you can see their ticker on the screen, USGO. This company, US Gold Mining, has no debt and approximately $3.9 million in cash and cash equivalents as of December 31st, 2024, on a project in Alaska. Let me repeat that. No debt on their balance sheet, which is why I'm happy to have them sponsor today's video. The stock trading as of May 11th below 40% its all-time high. At its April 2023 IPO, gold was worth $19.30 an ounce. Now, gold's trading at an all-time high, yet USGO's share price is still at its IPO price, down 40% from its all-time high. Their flagship Whistler gold-silver project includes 3 gold deposits with combined estimated mineral resources of 6.5 million ounces gold equivalent in the indicated category, plus an additional 4.2 million gold equivalent ounces in the inferred category. One shareholder owns 80% of the company. So this is a very unique scenario. The most critical development, and in my personal opinion, a potential value driver, comes from the Trump administration's attitude toward Alaska. This is Mike Dunleavy, governor of Alaska, with President Trump, and below with CEO of US Gold Mining Inc. on their Whistler project in Alaska. Tim Smith, the CEO, came to US Gold Mining from Newmont, a 100-year-old gold producer, one of the largest gold mining companies in the world. He also worked for Kaminak, which discovered the coffee deposit in the Yukon and advanced the resource until Goldcorp acquired it for 520 million Canadian, one of the most significant buyouts of the past decade. The CEO of US Gold Mining Inc. was part of the team that sold the coffee gold deposit owned by Kaminak to Goldcorp for 520 million Canadian in 2016. And while we're talking about different projects where outcomes could be different, this is the reason he was recruited to become CEO of USGO, so that he could utilize his skill set and work towards similar goals for US gold mining. So with gold recently at $3,400 an ounce, the best performing major asset class in 2025, and with Trump's massive executive order for the benefit of the state of Alaska, and with one major corporate shareholder owning 80% of USGO stock, plus a CEO that is a fit for this role, do your homework on USGO trading on the NASDAQ. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.